What if some people come together and decide they want to ban crypto?
It's not something that you will be able to ban. It has now gone into mass adoption. It's a mode in which future financial infrastructure is being built.
Warren Buffett, he's been very vocal about not favoring crypto.
Yes.
When you meet people like him, what worries them the most about crypto?
I don't think it's something that they worry about. I think it's something that they have not spent enough time, energy to understand. If you look at BlackRock, Mr. Larry Fink, CEO, for the longest time he was a sharp critic. And then the more he understands it, now he has turned into a keen supporter.
Isn't crypto essentially an alternative for the dollar?
I don't think it's going to be an alternative. Crypto is an asset class. In many instances, extremely useful and the best form of transfer of value globally.
You had $100 and you can only put in banks, governments, or technology companies. Which one do you think will give you maximum return?
I would say that in the first instance, it's always about the technology. Then the government and the institutions will come into play.
If some builder is watching you right now who is probably in early 20s, what one specific thing they should look at to create wealth in next 10, 20, 30 years?
I think it's important for them first understand the different landscape, do deep dives, focus on building things that will create value, that's sustainable, that has utility about it, there's strong use cases, because these are things that people will continue to use, they create value for the world, for yourself. So those are the areas that they should focus on.
Is there any specific sector that you believe is going to see the disruption in next 5-10 years?
I really believe that
if somebody is just waking up from a coma of 31 years and has no clue what's going on in the world, what would shock them the most about money today?
Well,
before we start today's podcast, if you have found anything valuable from this channel, please subscribe. It's free, it takes less than a minute, but it means a lot to us. And to listen to the audio experience of this episode, please follow us on Spotify. Our today's guest is Richard Teng, co-CEO of Binance, the world's largest crypto exchange with 220 million users globally. He spent 31 years in traditional finance, starting at Singapore's central bank, then running Abu Dhabi's financial regulator before moving into crypto. And today, the biggest names on Wall Street, JP Morgan, BlackRock, Standard Chartered, are embracing the same crypto world he leads. In this episode, we'll discuss, can a digital wallet replace your bank account in the future? Will the future generations ever have a bank account? Is the US dollar really dying, or is that just a rumor? Banks lend out over 90% of your deposits. So is your money really safe in a bank? And if an AI trading agent loses your money, who is responsible for that? Watch this episode till the end, and to know more about Binance, check the link in the description below. Before we start, I want to ask you, if someone's watching you for the first time,
yep,
and they have no clue who you are, okay? And they're like this 1% audience who has never even Googled you. How would you explain them? Who are you? What do you do?
Well, currently I'm the co-CEO of Binance. Binance is the largest crypto ecosystem in the world. We are a financial super app. So beyond crypto, we offer our investors exposure, ability to take positions across a suite of products, right? It's not only crypto, it's commodities, it's petrochemicals, it's precious metals, it's US stocks, it's pre-IPO counters as well. And the product suite keep expanding. So we have more than 320 million customers globally and expanding very quickly. So we are part of the global financial infrastructure.
Right. But who is Richard?
Well, Richard is, I'm trained. I spent more than 2.5 decades in financial. By now, I've been in financial services for more than 30 years. I started my career with the Central Bank of Singapore. Then I was in Singapore Exchange and became CEO of Abu Dhabi Global Market, which is a financial services regulator. So my background historically has been in traditional finance, has been in regulations. I got to discover crypto right about 2017. And the more I deep dive into it, I realized that this is going to be the future of financial services, future of money, right?
Nice. So if, let's say you've spent like about 2.5 decades, which is 25, 26 years in finance.
Yes. No, by now I spent more than 31 years in finance.
Perfect.
Yeah,
So it's 31 years now. So if somebody is just waking up from a coma of 31 years,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
and has no clue what's going on in the world,
Right.
right? What would shock them the most about money today?
Well, the concept of financial institutions and the concept of money are rapidly changing, right? So, I mean, I grew up in an era where it's a brick and mortar world, right? So if you want to set up a bank account, you have to go to a bank, you need your thumbprint on the passbook. There's no widespread ATM there. You need to do a withdrawal, you queue up in the branch, right? So the innovation has happened a bit slower throughout the past 2 decades, but it has happened to quite a fair bit of extent. But blockchain technology, crypto, has the ability to transform all that. So if you rethink from now on the future of financial services, and given today's tools, architecture, infrastructure, and I say build a new bank, build a new securities firm, build a new asset manager, you'll not be the model that you see in the past, right? It will be something that's totally different, because with the usage of blockchain and AI, the future of how a bank provider, a payment provider, exchange looks like will be totally different. So many things can be fundamentally changed, right? We are living in a very legacy system that has plenty of challenges. If you do a bank transfer today, cross-border, it takes 2 to 3 days. It takes huge costs, right? So if you look at, for example, India has more than 100 billion of remittance, right, in any given year. And if you look at the fees that the bank charge, 6 to 7%, so you're taking off $6 to $7 billion that, that can be substantially saved and given to your loved ones, to your families, to the vendors that you need to pay. But if you do that via stablecoin and crypto, right, those money can go to your loved ones, your vendors. The money can reach the end recipient in an instantaneous basis. Payments can be done. There's certainty of how much capital a corporate needs, right? Instead of holding a large amount of capital, if you have certainty of when the money is going to reach the end recipient, you don't have to hold so much capital, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a much more efficient way of doing. But this chain is replicated in every aspect of financial services. So if you rethink the future of financial services and if you rebuild the future of financial services, is going to look very, very different, even from what we see today, right? So stablecoin is just starting to take off with clarity provided by the Genius Act. And many other countries around the world are now embracing stablecoin and coming out with clear legislation. I mean, if you think about it, one of the biggest problem with trading today is you can only trade within a certain amount of hours a day, right? Whether it's 9 to 5, whether it's 10 to 4, depending on the countries you are in, it's helped by, it's constrained. And people don't realize the amount of liquidity risk that institutions, the corporates, the retail have to bear. Once the market closes, so to say, right? If there's anything that's happening in the world in terms of news flow, you can't take on new positions. You can't hedge your risk. You can't offset your position, right? So you're bearing a lot of risk until tomorrow the market opens and the price point opens at a totally different level. So if you think about it, isn't it better if you are allowed to do 24/7, manage your risk effectively, whether it's through human, whether it's through AI intervention, etc. So that is what crypto has already offered. 24/7 trading from the start, right? So the future world, in terms of how all these things are being managed, will be very different. Many securities companies in the world, exchanges, still operate on T+2, right? So during that 2 days of clearing and settlement, there's a lot of risk that's being bought. In crypto, we have already moved to atomic settlement. It's instantaneous because the technology provides for that. So if you think about it, there are so many facets within financial services that will be transformed very drastically. Once you have more and more institutions, and once you have more new fintechs, more new providers coming into the market, providing much better alternative of how financial infrastructure will look like. Okay, the transformation will take place very quickly.
See, all of this, to you, it sounds very obvious, right? And because you're in this world, you understand this. And probably for 5-6% people in the world also, this sounds obvious. And that's why they're betting towards this future, right? But for a lot of people, majority of people, they still believe in the old way of money.
Yeah.
That money is still powerful.
Yes.
That money is still the most important source for them, right?
Yes.
So what do you think? Why people still hold on to it? Or rather, I would say, what is that one lie about money that people still believe today?
You're brought up in the world, right? That the only sensible way, or the only way that you can transfer money is you go up to a remittance house or you go to the bank and say that this is how I send money to the... Firstly, is habit. And secondly, you are not open up to new areas of growth and new areas that you can do that much quicker. And thirdly, is structural, right? There are a lot of structural impediments. Even today, the way financial institutions are engineered, they're structured in a certain fashion, right? In the front office, there's middle office, there's back office. Middle and back office do certain functions. They have to go through reconciliation. They have to go through accounting settlement, right? But if another competing bank come through, or another big bank, to say that, look, I'm going to do middle and back office very different. I'm not going to do reconciliation because I don't have to. Once we blockchain technology, everything is immutable. So reconciliation become irrelevant, right? So once all those structural changes come through, both in terms of the financial institutions itself, but in terms of financial landscape, right? So with stablecoin coming through and growing so rapidly, with real assets tokenization coming through, so even the SWIFT of the world are forced to look at it and say, hey, look, we're going to support blockchain, right? So it's also habit and it's also literacy and awareness. But once a lot of all these things come true, then people realize through media, through education, through your friends to say, instead of paying 6 to 7%, you can pay 0.1%. Isn't this much more superior? But that change, especially depending on demographics, may come through differently. So if you talk about to a person 20 to 30 years old, digitally savvy, right? Using mobile most of the time, they know how it works. They will be the first embracer of this, definitely. And then if you go up the age group in the value chain, those change will take a slightly more time, right, for them to embrace it. But it will come true because technology will come through. It's just like initially when internet came through, did the embracement take place overnight? No, right? It'll take a period of time. It'll take for mobile penetration, internet penetration to take place. So that penetration will take place. So it's a matter of speed.
Let's say if you had $100.
Yes.
And you can only put in banks, governments, or technology companies for the future who can either bring change and actually end up giving you a lot of power, compounding, or whatever you want to put it.
And you're saying that $100 is from a private investor, or
like from a private investor, just you?
You cannot afford to put $100 in the government. Government has its own funding and has its own mechanism, right? There's no way that you can put
Let's say all three of you had one stock and equally priced $100. Which one do you think will give you maximum return on the scale of power, not in scale of actually money?
I would say that in the first instance, it's always about the technology, right? Without the technology, without showing the world the capabilities, right, the rest may not follow, right? So, like it or not, regulations is always half a step, one and half steps behind, because the regulations can never keep up with changes and the new technological advances. So it's very, very important that we place, the emphasis on technology, on the use case, on the utility. How do we transform the world? Same that you're seeing in AI. I mean, the regulations don't come in first, right? Same that you're seeing in quantum computing, etc. Because you have to prove that this has the ability to take root, this has the ability to transform and present a much better use case than what is the current state, right? Without that, the government doesn't know what it's looking at, right? The financial institutions are not understanding what it's going to look at. So I would say in the first instance, it's always the technology. The technology is the most important part. You have to show what is the future state, what is the use case, what's the utility, right? How do you bring about the development? How is it a technology that can bring about betterment for the people, right? So those are extremely important. Then the government and the institutions will come into play.
Warren Buffett, right? And he's been very vocal about not favoring crypto.
Yes.
Right? Charlie Munger and him, they both have said it multiple times in multiple occasions.
Yes.
Right? So when you meet people like him or people who believe in that kind of philosophy, what worries them the most about crypto and this new asset class?
I don't think it's something that they worry about. I think it's something that for the skeptics is something that they have not spent enough time, energy to investigate and to understand, right? So for the longest time, some of the largest money manager in the world, some of the largest financial institutions are skeptics and critics, right? So if you look at BlackRock, Mr. Larry Finn, CEO, for the longest time, he was a sharp critic of crypto. And then the more he understands it, now he has turned into a keen supporter. Jamie Dimon, one of the sharpest critics for the longest time, for 7 years, has been coming out to say negative things about crypto. He has changed his stance, right? The more he understands it and what this technology represents and how it can transform financial landscape. Now, JP Morgan is trying to work with, for example, DBS on tokenized deposits, which is an important use case for cryptography, for blockchain as well, right? So they are starting to embrace it in a very, very big way. So it's about that awareness, about understanding, it's about deep dive and knowing the technology and what it can bring and how it can shape the future world.
Do you think one of the reasons for a lot of these people to change their stance is about dollar devalue?
Well,
like everybody keeps saying that dollar is dying.
There are many people that may subscribe to that view. I actually don't. Right?
You don't?
I don't. And I can explain to you why, right? I think there are countries that want to move away from dollar denominance. I think that's a fact. And that fact has been in existence for a long period of time, right? But for that to come true, you need several elements to come into play, right? So today, if you look at globally, which is not only a reserve currency, but a safe haven currency, essentially there's just US dollars, right? So why are we in this current state? Because the US dollars is used as a denomination for majority of all the trade flows, right? So global trade flows is denominated. You have a war and infrastructure under the existing system, pretty much controlled by the US financial system, right? If you look at just US equities alone, it accounts for close to 60-70% of the equity value of the world, right? If you want to do a fundraising, right, at high valuation for a tech company, where do you go to? The US market, right? So again, because of all that different parts of the ecosystem, are you able to move quickly? No. Would all the different countries want to come out with their own solutions? Definitely, right? So for example, CBDCs is what the countries wanted to do to also try to de-risk from US currency. But that will take some time, right? And whether those experiments are going to be used, is going to be transformational, it really depends on what is being embarked in those experimentations.
True, but then isn't crypto essentially an alternative for the dollar?
Well, I
say crypto, but let's say Bitcoin.
I don't think it's going to be an alternative for, I mean, if you look at most of the stable coins today, it's still denominated in US dollars, right? So crypto is an asset class, right? it is, in many instances, extremely useful and the best form of transfer of value, right, globally, right? But the transfer of value has to be denominated in something. So I don't see crypto as that. And the crypto usage goes way more beyond just a mode of transfer of that. It's a store of value used in most instances. It's a mode of payment. It's a mode in which future financial infrastructure is being built. Is a mode that really facilitate 24/7 settlement, global asset tokenization, and many. And the use cases are being developed as we speak. In the DeFi space, there are so many new different projects. So in the payment space, again, in the RW space, that has grown by 25 times in the last year alone. The script is just being rewritten at this point in time. There are so many strong use cases coming through. So it's just not one dimensional.
Crypto is giving a lot of freedom to people, right?
Yes.
There's not going to be a bank in the middle or no government in the middle or no charge, which is 6-7%, essentially comes down to 0.1%, right? So it's like a lot of freedom for people to not put their trust into one institution, right? But that's also a gateway and freedom for, let's say, a scammer or a dictator or a trafficker to just attack an individual. So maybe this technology, which is empowering a lot of freedom, is at the same time empowering a lot of bad actors. So do you think about that sometimes, that both sides are just getting empowered at the same time with the technology?
Same for with any technology, right? So just let me elaborate a lot more. The scammers, the fraudsters has existed for the longest time within financial services. I don't know whether you do this, you receive this in India, but in Singapore, we receive a lot of scam calls. People, and there are even people masquerading as our prime minister asking for transfer from banks. And one unfortunate individual has been scammed to transfer $4.9 million if you look at the press article, right? So scams, fraudsters exist in any situation, right? Especially the advent of technology such as AI, right? People have to be very, very cautious, right? So there are areas that we need to continue to invest in, both in the traditional financial institutions to provide enough guardrails, right? But for our users, for the global users, whether they are users of financial institution or crypto, they have to do a lot of understanding, research. Don't trust all these things coming through, right? Have their independent mind. Don't just trust. I mean, normally the scammers play up to emotions to say that, if you don't do this, there's either a risk, right? You have to give me access. Otherwise, your account will be, accessed by other people, etc. So I'm trying to secure your opportunity is too good to miss, right? I'm going to offer you how many % return, etc. So whatever it is, you have to be prudent and be cautious in whatever format that's coming through. So it's not limited, right? Unlike what you say in crypto, it happens all the time in financial institutions. So I think that's one. But as a responsible entity, we have built in so many guardrails, right? And we are utilizing this technology in many senses that financial institutions are not utilizing. So, for example, on the cybersecurity side, we have invested very heavily. We have invested, today we have more than 100 AI models just doing anti-fraud scanning. And last year alone, we helped our users avoided close to 7 billion in terms of potential scams, right? More than 5.4 million users, close to 7 billion in potential scams. Because using all this new technology, we have the ability to detect that. And when our users want to transfer funds, we want them to, are you sure about this? Who are you trying to? So those are things that as a responsible entity we do.
On this point, I have a rather philosophical question to follow up, right? If you look at money, in the entire human time, in the last 5,000 years of our history, we always needed someone who we trusted right? Some kind of king, some kind of temple, or a bank or a government or something in the middle there where we trust it, right? Crypto for the first time is where we all are coming together and we are like, we don't trust someone, we trust math. We trust some code or some math formula, right? So are we moving away from trusting an individual and outsourcing our, outsourcing betrayal to a form of math or a form of code?
No, so what you say is not true. So in the very early days, with barter trade, right, the transfer of value is different, right? And if you remember, if I bring you back 16 years, how Bitcoin manifesto came about was really loss of faith not of the central authority, but of the centralized platforms, the Lehman Brothers collapse, etc., financial institutions not being to manage the risks. You can see those collapse coming through. And people feel disenfranchised. When something collapses, they can't do what they need to do via proper transactions, right? The system froze. You have a central party in that. So that's how, Bitcoin was then said, look, this is a better alternative way of payment where you disintermediate from a center middleman. That there's a lot of vagueness and is opaque. We do not know what is in there. We don't know how they're regulated. The central bank say they're properly regulated, then how can they fail, right? So to say. So it's slightly different, and that then take root among a group of very early adopters, early believers to say this is way superior. Instead of letting a middleman take 6, 7, 10% of my transfer, why shouldn't I do this using technology which is far superior? And today it has transformed, right? So if you look at stablecoin, it's one of the most important use cases of that technology. But even the banks are embracing it now. So if you look at global banks like Standard Chartered, HSBC, they say that, we're going to issue stable coins. They've gotten licenses in jurisdiction, including in Hong Kong, to do that. So this technology is proving itself to be important and relevant and changing how future remittance, how future payment, how the future of financial services will look like.
Aren't you as Binance is becoming the middleman?
So we are
like the concept
firm.
You were against, yes. You guys are becoming the same concept.
No, so that's different. So the banks operate on a fractionalized reserve basis, right? So for every $100 that they get, they keep 5%, 8% in terms of regulatory reserve. They then lend out the rest of the money, right? So it's about risk management. For us, it's different. Customers' money, 100%. And because we have this technology, we introduce proof of reserve so that customers can at any point in time check on the chain, check the address that the money, their assets are there, right? So at any point in time, we hold north of 140 billion of customer assets, but those assets are properly safeguarded. And we became the first global exchange to have a home regulator, right? So other than 20 over countries that we are regulated in, we are the only one with a home regulator that regulates us on an end-to-end basis. So not just about AML, transaction monitoring, how we do our know your customer, know your business, how we do enforcement, listings, our global liquidity is regulated, but also areas of how we custodize, how we safeguard money, when we do our proof of reserve, which give transparency to our customers that your money is held safe, where you can verify all this. The financial institutions, traditional financial institutions, are not able to do that for customers. So it's a totally different concept.
If you were 18 today, would you open a bank account?
Well, it really depends. It depends on whether I'm technologically savvy, right? So if I'm 18 and not technologically savvy, and depending on whether there are banks in my country, if you look at, I've been in financial services for more than 30 years. Since day one, central bankers, financial institutions around the world say that we have to bring about greater financial inclusion. But as of today, you have 1.4 billion people around the world with no access to proper payment system, with no access to proper banking system, because financial institutions are making it too expensive, right? They don't want to serve this group of people. So what's the alternative? What's the option? It is crypto. It is blockchain technology, it's Bitcoin, right? So I go around the world to many parts of the frontier market, global south, emerging markets, where people come out and thank me, right? And thank Binance, because their life has improved tremendously once they got to know, firstly, crypto, secondly, Binance, using it as a platform for store of wealth, for transfer of value, etc. Because they get access to things that they couldn't get access before, right? So those are extremely important. So I would say that if I'm eating, definitely, I believe I'll be savvy enough, hopefully. And I would definitely embrace this. Because I will give you a situation. The future world, if you think about it, you don't necessarily need a bank account, but you definitely need a wallet. So the wallet infrastructure is very, very important, right? So through your wallet, you get payments from your employers. It could be in the form of stable coins coming in on a monthly basis. From there, using a combination of AI and blockchain, you can pay your normal bills, right? Whatever bills that you need to pay. You can then do, using that, diversification, right? You can have a balanced portfolio. I'm going to invest in equities, commodities, credit. Part of it will go to earn product and savings. Everything can be managed out from that wallet, right? So the concept of a banking institution to the future generation, I believe, will look very different as we continue to evolve, because through a mobile, through a wallet, you can do everything, literally. So do you still need to go to a bank to set up a bank? No. What you need to is a wallet. So, which is why it's very important to think forward and rethink the future of the world and what's coming, right? So if you look at, we continue to invest very heavily into our Web3 wallet on that front. Today, our market share stands at north of 80%. So we believe that all this technology and infrastructure, these are infrastructural layers that are extremely important for the future.
So you believe that the wallet infrastructure will become more important than the bank infrastructure?
Absolutely.
At some point?
Absolutely.
Do you think our kids will talk about bank accounts the way we talk about fax machines?
I don't know, but my kids doesn't quite talk about bank account anymore.
Yours should not.
So, but different economy have different setup, right? And different economy evolve and innovate at different pace. So it really depends. But I would say that the more the evolution goes, the more prevalent and important all this new technology, all this new way of working. Because today, once I give you a much better alternative, you will not go back to the past alternative. You will demand the future alternative. Why am I paying 6 to 7% if I can do 0.1%? Why am I not allowed to take positions when there's 24/7 trading, right? Why do I have to wait for 2 to 3 days if I can do transfer on an instantaneous basis? It's not only the retail is asking that, the corporates are doing that. So you look at all the very big corporate treasuries, they are moving to say, look, I need to, on a daily basis, I need to transfer hundreds of millions of funds from Australia to Europe to US to different parts of Asia. I need to allocate that. Isn't it better to make use of stablecoin or crypto technology to do that transfer? So that I hold less capital. My capital is put to better use, is much greater efficiency. I save a lot of costs for the organization. And I have certainty for myself, all my subsidiaries, all my vendors, when are they going to receive the payment? That brings about greater capital velocity. That's a better alternative. And once they do that, they will not go back to the existing state of play, right?
True. You said it depends on different economies how the manifestation will take place, right? And it's an important question that different economies will function in different ways. They will have different thought process. What if some people come together and decide they want to ban crypto? What happens then?
Well, you have countries that ban crypto, right? But as with technology, you can try to curtail it, you can try to ban it, but the technology will continue to advance very, very quickly, right? Like it or not. And there are many countries around the world that are embracing it. Crypto is becoming mainstream. You can't turn back the clock now, right? So the longer you actually ban this technology, the further behind the value chain the country will be. And over time, actually impacts a country's competitiveness. But those are country level consideration. Those are policy consideration. Countries will have their own consideration to take into play why they do certain things. But from a competitive angle, as I mentioned, AI and blockchain, crypto technology are the two most important technology that will underpin every economic sector. If you think about every economic sector in the world going forward, whether it's trade, whether it's financial services, whether it's media entertainment, every sector can be rebuilt using these two fundamental technologies. They'll look extremely different 5-10 years from now compared to the current state that we see today.
So it won't be completely banned?
It's not something that you will be able to ban. It has now gone into mass adoption, right? So my view, but might may be wrong. A lot of times it's much better to embrace the technology, to embrace it and to regulate it. Then you have proper oversight of the technology, what it does, and then you can put in place guardrails, right? So a lot of countries, if you look at the history of the world, countries that close themselves off, right, and to the outside world, tends to fall behind very quickly because they are not in touch with the latest innovation, the latest technology in the past world history. They don't get access to military technology like gunpowders, etc. And they fall behind very, very quickly. So every time the country shut its borders, etc., and don't continue to embrace innovation and all these new changes coming through, there's a risk to the country.
Another technology, I was reading some comments that you guys are using AI agents a lot in Binance, right? Are you using AI agents for better trading as well?
Absolutely. So we use AI across the organization. So for example, this year, every business unit leaders, the mandate is to make every function within Binance much more effective and much more efficient with the usage of AI. And then from our user level, is also giving them the right tools through AI so to facilitate that, right? So we introduced Binance AI Pro, where you can do proper analytics, you can do assessment of analytics, you can do trading on it. And the future will, again, of all the other things I mentioned, is one that agentic trading is going to be prevalent, right? So agentic trading, agentic payment is going to be prevalent. So if you think about it, all these are important usage of blockchain and important usage of payment going forward will be stablecoins and crypto, because once you use agentic, tokens burn if you talk about cents, you can't afford to make payments using your traditional card payment or traditional banking payment because it's too costly, right? So crypto, instantaneous transfer, low cost becomes the natural default currency for AI. That's why we always say that crypto, stablecoin are the natural currency for the AI generation because of all these changes that you're seeing, right? And agentic trading coming through, agentic payment coming through. It's only natural that the evolution will continue to evolve very, very quickly.
Explain me agentic trading. It's like on my behalf, an agent will trade?
Yes. So you give the parameters.
So what if an AI agent loses my money at 3 a.m.? Who do I blame?
The AI model, you have to make sure that you have proper risk parameters, right? You have proper cut loss measures, etc. You for experienced trader, you know what to do. You can build in all these guardrails for yourself.
But who do I blame? Let's say some bug feature happened and then my agent end up losing my entire life savings on your platform.
Safeguard all those, right? So do things that you understand and put in place proper guardrails. Don't have fat finger. In the traditional world, you have fat finger as well, right? So have proper safeguards, and it's very important that you test the agent to make sure it's doing all the right things.
Even after putting proper safeguards, Would you trust AI agent with all your money?
It's about risk diversification, right? So,
But would you trust yourself?
I would make sure that I test it properly first. I make sure that there's a proper track record of how it's operating before I continue to invest. As I always say, right? Start small. Make sure that you understand it. Make sure you understand the potential and the pitfalls of anything that you put your money into, because it's your money that you're dealing with before you continue to expand that portfolio.
But here's the scary part about it, right? What if in my first few trades, I end up making money with my little amount, and then I put my whole amount, and then with my AI
you're not
agent,
being prudent.
then my AI agent messes up the entire thing.
No, that is not. Yeah, it's all about risk management. It's very important to make sure that the AI agent is tested for different market conditions, right? Different situations and circumstances. So it's very important for you to test the parameters and you know what you're getting into.
And what was the toughest thing for you personally as a CEO when you took over?
Well, I do think that is steadying the ship and working through with all the regulators around the world to show that we have pivoted very, very strongly. We have invested greatly into compliance. I mean, financial institutions make mistakes. It's not only us, but if you look at all the global financial institutions, they breach law, they breach AML provisions at some point in time. The rules and standards are ever evolving, so we need to keep pace with those rules and standards. But what is important as with responsible entities like ourselves is to acknowledge those mistakes, make the right investments, and then come out of it much stronger, which we have done, right? So we have demonstrated that, okay, we make mistakes, we have underinvested in compliance. Now we have made huge commitment to investment, to compliance, and invested greatly. We work with global regulators to embrace regulations, to embrace compliance. We have a very strong and robust team now. And, we continue to work very closely with policymakers, regulators around the world, so that good regulations, smart regulations are being promulgated to regulate this sector for the benefit of everybody. We want proper regulations. Our interests are aligned with users and aligned with regulators. We want a responsible ecosystem in place that's properly regulated for the benefit of everybody. So our interests are all aligned. Is how do we get there, and to make sure that smart regulations come true instead of one-dimensional regulation that just focus on risk, which then makes it a very purpose of legislation. Because for any legislation that just focus on risk without also supporting innovation and growth, right, then it's going to be very, very challenging. As an ex-regulator, I can tell you that the easiest form of regulation is to regulate everything to the ground, is to have zero risk. But when you have zero risk, you have zero activity. How is it going to benefit the economy and the people, right? So you need to come up with a balanced, smart regulations to support both sides. In Binance, I hope I continue to do the same as an enabler, as a builder, working with a fantastic team, right? So I have the founders, co-CEO E, working alongside. We have many brilliant people. And we continue to believe that we need to continue that mission of Binance, which is the freedom money, build the best platform out there into a financial super app to serve our users in terms of all their financial services needs. And that's where we are heading towards.
See, so if some builder is watching you right now, who is probably in early 20s, want to build his career or her career, right? The money is changing. World is changing, AI and technology is changing, geopolitics is changing, so many changes happening in the world. What should they focus on, or which industry perhaps, or what one specific thing they should look at to create wealth in next 10, 20, 30 years?
I would say that the technology will always come through, right? So there will always be new technology coming through. The sectors will always evolve. The opportunities will always evolve. So I think it's important for them first to understand, spend as much time possible, understand the different landscape, do deep dives. But it's also understanding if they are a builder, focus on building things that will create value. It's very important, right? So if you focus on building things that will create value, that's sustainable, that has utility about it, there's strong use cases, you won't go too far wrong, right? Because these are things that people will continue to use. They create value for the world, for yourself. So those are the areas that they should focus on. Continue to look at ways to create new value or enhance existing value.
Is there any specific sector that you believe is going to see the disruption in next 5-10 years?
I would say that
where there's not a lot of work has done, so somebody can maybe look at.
I really believe that every economic sector in the world will be transformed using AI and crypto. Entertainment, right? Payments in entertainment, for example, you'll be totally transformed. Supply chain financing will be totally transformed using AI and crypto. Financial services, I think we have touched on. But if you look at even different type of sectors, right? There are so many sectors with so many opportunities that's ripe for transformation, right? So if you inject the right lens, if you have the right expertise, and you use the right technology, you can create a lot of new value in each of these economic sector.
Got it. Well, thank you so much. Here's one last thing I've started asking my guests these days. I really like to ask is, what is one advice that nobody should follow?
Hey, I have this great investment that can generate huge returns for you. So don't trust those. Do your own research. It's extremely important. Just don't trust. Just don't trust what other people tell you without understanding, without researching, without analyzing. It's going to be challenging, right? So importantly, do your own research. Very important that you are the master of your own money and your own knowledge. So invest time in all those things.
All right. Thank you so much. That's a great
one. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I was in Budapest. So I saw the match between...
Are you a PSG fan or Arsenal?
Actually, I'm a fan of football.
Okay.
I'm not a fan of both clubs. But I think, they are very, very good clubs and play. But it's very tight football that they play on the finals. Very, very, very cautious, very tight football. Yeah.
Which is your favorite club?
Liverpool.
Thank you so much for watching this episode till the end. Now you have to